Maybe you've just discovered that your manipulative friend isn't as sweet as she pretends to be, or the guilt that your mother's been laying on you isn't your biblical burden to bear. And you're probably here because you realize that no needs to become a regular part of your vocabulary. Look, every relationship, parent, pastor, partner, coworker, or friend needs boundaries. It's actually what makes relationships healthy. You see, boundaries are limits that we set with others to protect our relationships and ourselves. They're guidelines that we communicate to others regarding how we want to be treated. Well, hey, my friend, my name is Kris Reece, and I want to welcome you back to another edition of the Building Faith podcast, where it is my hope to bring you biblical solutions to life's tough challenges. So if you have not already done so, would you go ahead and hit that subscribe and notification button if you've been blessed by our time together? I'd greatly appreciate it. Maybe you've just realized that you need to say no to certain people, or perhaps you've been avoiding setting limits for a while and it's finally catching up with you. What do you say that we make today the day that you learn to speak your no in love? Because in today's episode, we're going to talk about 3 key principles and 2 boundary barriers that you're going to need to avoid if you want to set guiltless boundaries with confidence. Let's dive in. Principle number 1, know thyself. Have you ever been given the advice, just be yourself? Well, that's great advice, but what do you do if you don't know who you are? If you don't know who you are and what you want, someone else is going to gladly define that for you. To be able to set rock solid boundaries, my friend, you're going to need to have a rock solid identity. And this may be actually the hardest step of all because many of us have formed our identities based upon the needs and the expectations of others. But you, my friend, are a unique creation. You were fearfully and wonderfully made by the Creator of the universe. So how do you get to know you? There are 3 key areas that I want you to identify. Number 1 is, what's your temperament? Your temperament is your God-given nature, and we all have one, and we operate either in its strengths or its weaknesses. And my hope is that you will freely flow in all that God has created you to be when you understand how He wired you. And if you need help getting to understand your temperament, I want to invite you to grab a copy of my free What's My Temperament guide to get you started. I will go ahead and include a link in the description section below. Number 2, what are my preferences? And this includes your likes, your dislikes, your passions, annoyances, dreams, and your values. These are what make you different. And yes, my friend, it is okay to be different from others. And number 3, what are my needs? You can't expect others to meet your needs until you know your own needs. Last I checked, mind reading is not a spiritual gift. Establishing boundaries and getting to know yourself can actually feel selfish at first, but you will not be able to set healthy boundaries until you discover where the other person ends and you begin. Principle number 2, own your stuff. Most rookies to boundaries usually arrive at the desire to declare their no after a really long time of abuse. And I have no doubt that these people have taken advantage of you. But putting yourself in the role of victim may feel like it absolves you of responsibility, but the truth is, you actually had a part to play in this. So bear with me. Ask yourself this. Was there something that I was getting from this relationship that maybe I was unwilling to give up? Did I believe that my behavior could change theirs? Why did I surrender my values for their approval? You see, now would be the time to examine what part you played in the toxic tango, even if it had nothing else to do but what your reaction was to their behavior. And next, you're going to want to own your feelings. Examine what's going on in your heart, because that's going to be crucial if you truly want to learn how to speak the truth in love. And Luke 6:43 reminds us that out of the mouth, the heart speaks. So if you're harboring resentment, bitterness, unforgiveness, victim mentality, or anything of the kind, your behavioral changes are going to be temporary at best. Resolve the issues in your heart before you open your mouth. Before we move on to the next step, if you are struggling with codependency, basically, if you're only okay when others are okay with you, there won't be enough boundary principles to help you because a big part of the issue actually lies within you. Now, I'm not saying you're at fault, nor am I saying that boundaries aren't warranted. However, If you fear upsetting the other person, if you fear losing the relationship and what it brings, as meager as it may have been, or you base your actions on someone else's potential reaction, then your boundaries likely won't work because you will always cave and kowtail to the other person. Remember, we're called to be God pleasers, not people pleasers. And if you need help with people pleasing, please check out my online course called Conquering Codependency Biblically. I'll go ahead and include a link in the description section below. And principle number 3, communicate with clunkiness. Wouldn't it be great if someone could just hand you a script on what to say and how to say it? Well, good news is I'm actually going to do that for you in just a few moments, but the truth is you still need to practice. So don't wait for perfection. Begin to communicate with clunkiness and the confidence will eventually come. So here's the 3 steps that I want you to take when communicating your boundaries. Pray, practice, ponder. For starters, pray. My friend, you're not going to be successful at speaking the truth in love without the help of the Holy Spirit. Next, you're going to need to practice. Here's the boundary communication framework that I want you to follow. I feel blank when you do blank, so from now on, I won't, blank, when you blank. Take a moment to write that down. Pause this, write it down, and all you're going to do is simply fill in the blanks. You see, expressing yourself this way not only expresses your feelings, but it doesn't put the other person so much on the defensive because now you're blaming them for your feelings. You're owning your part, you're sharing what bothers you, and you're setting your limits. Also, expressing yourself this way gives the other person an opportunity to potentially correct the error of their ways, but it's not dependent upon that. Let me repeat that, my friend. Your boundaries are not based upon their acceptance. And just as an aside, if this person has shown no regard for your feelings, then simply eliminate the first part of the framework and say, from now on, I will/won't blank when you blank. Then you're going to ponder. And here's where I want you to examine the interaction in detail. And it's kind of like a sports team going back to the videotape. Determine where you went wrong, where you lost your cool, and how you could have done better. And then you're going to repeat the process. Pray, practice, ponder. And your boundaries will go from clunky to confident. Well, did you know that there are 10 scriptures that actually prove you're not a doormat? I want you to check out this episode next to find out. And are you ready to set boundaries like a boss? Go ahead and check out my online course, Boundaries with Toxic Family. I'll go ahead and include a link in the description section below.